We start with breaking news and the extraordinary power struggle playing out among the president, states, and the courts. Illinois just sued the Trump administration to prevent the deployment of Texas National Guard troops to the city of Chicago, a move Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker labeled a, quote, Trump invasion. And the city's Democratic mayor, Brandon Johnson, just signed an executive order establishing, quote, ice-free zones on city property after a week of ramped-up immigration enforcement and tense anti-ICE protests.
We need ICE out of our city so that we can continue to focus on the strategies that have been working to drive violent crime down. ICE lies and people die. We cannot allow this to continue. We must take action more drastic than what we have taken before, because what we are seeing is a more radical attempt to undermine our democracy.
It means more critical legal battles on the president's crime crackdown after a chaotic 48 hours of emergency rulings in Portland. There, a Trump-appointed judge twice blocked the White House from deploying troops from Oregon to other states to the city and accused the administration of seeking to circumvent her orders. I'm joined right now by a terrific group of reporters who cover all of these issues in depth, including Seungmin Kim, who covers the White House for the Associated Press and also been covering immigration for so many years. So, Seungmin, take us inside the White House, how they're viewing this moment, because Trump is getting slapped down by the courts, but they're trying to figure out other ways to circumvent what the courts are saying. They're not backing down here.
They're certainly not backing down. I mean, they believe that the president has extreme power to dispatch these troops into these cities that he views as lawless. You know, my question for the White House is, how far does this power actually go? How far do they think they can go, particularly when they are seeing resistance from the courts? To get a handle into the White House thinking, I was really struck by a stream of social media posts from Stephen Miller, one of the president's top aides who's overseeing Homeland Security. And he says the president has, quote, undisputed authority under the law and the Constitution to essentially protect federal property that's coming, he says, under assault by these protesters. But looking at the reports from the ground, you know, looking at how the AP reporters on the ground are describing it, I mean, obviously there have been times when the protests have flared up back in June, but these have been relatively small. You know, these are nightly demonstrations that have been, you know, no more than a few dozen people. And that's also the rationale cited by the Trump-appointed judge in her rulings when she ruled against the administration.
Yeah, the judge is Karen Immergut. She's a U.S. District Judge from the District of Oregon. She was appointed by Trump in 2019. She was actually confirmed by the Senate by a voice vote back then. She's a long-standing, she's worked for Chief Justice Roberts, George W. Bush, and the like. You can see there on your screen some of her background. But Stephen Miller, as Seungmin was just referring to, among the things he was tweeting about this weekend was about this judge, calling it a, quote, legal insurrection. That was the words from the president's, one of his aides.
Yeah, and when you talk about the type of language that could be problematic, that could bring unintended consequences to our judges. I think that's among them, because insurrection is a crime. It's a serious crime in America. And so I think as we continue to talk about political rhetoric and how it could lead to violence, I think there's room to be concerned about exactly the phrasing used when we're talking about judges' orders. But also, even that phrasing is a distraction when you actually look at what the judge said to Seungmin's point, which is that she believes the Trump administration is using false pretexts to justify sending the National Guard into cities. And I think that's really what the Trump administration needs to reckon with, is why are they really sending the National Guard in, and is it legal?
Yeah, and those are all key questions. Also, the key question is, how do Democrats respond? We saw this lawsuit that has now just been filed by Illinois. Of course, Democrats run Illinois. J.B. Pritzker, the Democratic governor there, has been out front on this. Gavin Newsom, too, pushing back after they got involved over the weekend as Trump tried to send the National Guard there into Oregon as well. Trump got pushed the administration got rejected by the courts at the moment on that. Gavin Newsom tweeted, "This is a breathtaking abuse of the law and power by the President of the United States. America is on the brink of martial law. Do not be silent." That's what he said on Sunday night. What do you make of the Democrats' handling of this issue? Because, of course, crime, immigration have been issues that have tripped them up year, cycle after cycle. But this moment, it's a little bit different.
They seem to be racing to challenge Trump, and that seems to be the bigger imperative, to sort of show strength in confronting Trump as opposed to addressing some of these issues that at the margins they talk about. There's, I believe the mayor in Memphis has talked about sort of a little bit more of a law and order approach. Of course, he's also out there sort of questioning whether or not the authorities are there for the National Guard deployment there. So it seems like every time we have this conversation, you toss to Gavin Newsom. We have a Gavin Newsom soundbite or tweet and a J.B. Pritzker soundbite or tweet, which tells me they want to talk about it. And I think that tells us something going forward in this entire confrontation between Trump and the courts, Trump and the Democrats, Trump and Congress, which I think we'll get to in another block. But there are certain Democrats that have figured out how to harness this energy, and they seem to be relishing the conflict, if not the overall contours of the fight.
I know this show is inside politics, and of course we're talking about the politics of it all, but particularly in a city like Chicago, if you're really talking about the crime in the city and the root causes of crime in the city of Chicago, which even its leaders know that it is a problem, they've been working to address it. It's not related to ICE and immigration enforcement, not directly. We're talking about young black men, often in black neighborhoods, that are the victims and the perpetrators of most of the crime, that the murders, the homicide rates that gets a lot of the attention. And so I really hope and would wish that the Trump administration listen to and censure the people that are actually on the ground, boots on the ground, trying to address this, because they're not saying send National Guard to ICE facilities. They're saying give us the resources in the programming and the funding to really get to what we know are the root causes of crime in our city.
And one of the real issues is that if there may not be coordination between what's happening on the ground with these, especially with Brandon Johnson, the Democratic mayor, essentially saying that not to cooperate with these federal law enforcement, that has significant ramifications about when these troops are on the ground, how they're going to respond to what they're seeing.
How they're going to respond, what kind of information they're getting from federal officials. We know the Oregon governor has been on the phone with the White House. But yes, there's this just really tense clash, particularly between blue cities and blue states and this administration. And I want to go back to what you were talking about with Hans and talking about the president's relative strength when it comes to crime and immigration and the Democrats' relative weaknesses on those issues. That is true.
Before you continue, I just want to show viewers the poll on that issue. 48-47 Trump approval, disapproval on the issue of crime. Better than most issues right now. But then the question about sending the National Guard to big cities, that's a different question, because a lot of voters, a majority of voters, according to this poll, believe he's gone too far. 53% say he's gone too far.
Right. That was the point I was going to make. If you look at the actual tactics and what nonpartisan polling says, Americans do oppose these tactics. Now, does public sentiment deter the administration? I'm not quite sure, because as we've discussed, this has been a long time coming, particularly from those who are among his closest aides now.
Yeah. Neither of those polls are blowouts either. Those are both very close. And when the White House sees close polls like that, they think it's an issue they can win, especially when they revert to what they always do, which is Trump's gut.
Right.
And the president is convinced that this is an issue that favors him. And I suspect, therefore, we'll keep seeing it in the news and him being aggressive on it. But what struck me about those polls is just how close they are.
Yeah.
The gone too far, though, number was 52%. And that number is just increasing as the skirmishes between the blue cities and states and the White House continues.
Yeah.
It's not like he's gaining support as he continues to push to send the National Guard into cities where they do not want him to do so.
And I suspect as we get closer to the midterms, the more of those skirmishes that we shall see, and we'll see how the voters respond and those polls respond as well.